Hello, everyone. Good morning, where I'm at anyways. Welcome. I'm Annette Oltmans, founder and CEO of the MEND Project. Thank you for joining us for this month's training intensive, When Good Parents Cause Harm. On the third Tuesday of each month, we host training intensives so we can take a deeper look at a single subject and offer 1 hour time of learning on Zoom and Facebook Live. You may find recordings of prior intensives on our Facebook page or YouTube channel, so I really encourage you to check those out. And to stay informed, please subscribe on our website or follow us on social media. And if there are any topics you'd like to see us cover in the future, feel free to share them with us through our website or at info@themendproject.com. And just for those of you who don't know, the MEND Project is a nonprofit organization I founded in 2016 to educate, to equip, and to restore all those impacted by abuse. We teach survivors, responders, therapists, faith-based leaders of all faiths, and other nonprofits regarding abuse and double abuse. We train them how to understand the complexities of abuse and how to respond to victims correctly in order to prevent further harm, which we call double abuse. Double abuse is actually the secondary harm that often occurs when a victim reaches out for help, but is inadvertently or sometimes intentionally harmed by those who the victim places their trust in. Victims are sadly often not believed, or they are judged, criticized, given incorrect instructions. They may be interrogated and even blamed for the abuse. These are forms of double abuse. So and this happens to children too. For example, kids who have been bullied and then they try to get help and they're doubly abused instead of supported. So before we get into today's topic, I wanted to share that this March, we have been holding space for victims and survivors of abuse in a public training cohort going through what we call our Responding to Abuse training curriculum. It's going really well, and we've decided to have another cohort this year beginning on August 15th for those who find themselves in these challenging relational dynamics or have survived them and want to gain more clarity and healing. The 7-week interactive online course teaches you all about emotional abuse, trauma, double abuse, and many other related topics that will help you gain further clarity and hopefully send you on a really good path for healing. To learn more, simply visit our website at themendproject.com, where you can sign up to receive notice when the registration opens on July 1st. So registration opens on July 1st. And you can learn more about when we begin accepting applications for full and partial scholarships, which we offer to victims and survivors, especially if they're in financial hardship and it would be difficult for them. I want to make a special note that many people attending this cohort depend on scholarships. So we really need financial partners willing to donate some small or large amount to help as many people as possible to benefit from this course. Again, please visit our website to learn how you can play a significant role in the work that we do. Today, we are going to talk about when good parents cause harm. I want to encourage you to place any comments or questions you may have throughout this talk in the chat box. We will open up the conversations to address your comments and questions at the end. And it sounds like those two concepts, good parents and cause harm, don't necessarily belong together. And that makes sense. But the reality is none of us is perfect. Parenting is tough. We didn't receive parenting classes in our academic studies, and all of us make mistakes. Perhaps you haven't been abused or intended to cause harm, but you've not made the best choices parenting your child or children. Perhaps you can think of a time when you wish you would have responded or handled a situation differently, whether it was with your infant, toddler, preteen, or teen, or even adult child. At one time or another, we all have responded or reacted in a way that causes harm by shutting our child down or powering over our child. And it happens, and we will talk about how to make it right when we as good parents unintentionally cause harm. I do want to note that it's a slippery slope from poor choices in parenting to inadvertently even being abusive. It can be a thin line that can be hard to measure. And typically it can be measured by what the child is actually experiencing. If the child feels afraid of their parent or like they are walking on eggshells, that's a clear indicator that the line has crossed into the child being emotionally abused. When a parent demands high control and isn't managing their angry outbursts or frequently criticizes or even humiliates their child, those are sure signs that the line has been crossed from a good parent causing harm to a parent that's being abusive. Berating your child, calling them names, mocking or defaming them are also indicators of parents being abusive. And when the child is the brunt of jokes in your family, or when they are mocked sarcastically by a parent, those behaviors are demeaning and abusive. When a parent repeatedly fails to manage their own reactions, their own triggers to their child's less than desirable behavior, they walk a thin line. Okay, so we've mentioned a few overt forms of abuse, of abusive parenting, the ridicule, the mockery, the sarcasm, but there are also subtle forms that can be abusive as well. For example, if your child comes to you with a complaint or concern and you don't stop what you're doing to really hear what your child is saying, or you downplay their point of view or their feelings, we call this minimization. During the holiday season, I want to give an example to so you really understand minimization. If your child comes to you during the holidays and says, Mom, Dad, I don't like Uncle so-and-so, and he's coming for the holidays, many parents may make the mistake of saying, oh, just give him a hug and sit on the other side of the table. But this would actually classify as minimization. Why doesn't your child like Uncle so-and-so? It's important to find out. Children need adults to help them process their intuition and gut feelings. Maybe their uncle has been inappropriate with them in some way. And if you don't sit down calmly and create a safe environment for the child to express their feelings and thoughts without judgment or reaction from you, you will never find out why. Children need adults to validate their concerns so they can develop confidence in their own perspectives. This is one way to help your child develop a higher emotional IQ. If their uncle has in fact been inappropriate in any way, it's critical that you don't just take in the information, but then you take the necessary steps to intervene. Speak to the uncle well before the holiday event and create firm boundaries. And if you don't feel those boundaries will be respected, then it's important to have the courage to disinvite that uncle to the party. Children need adults to intervene. They cannot navigate others' behaviors on their own. You really need to listen well to your child. And when I say listen, I mean listen, 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 without interrupting or redefining their thoughts. Validate their feelings and protect your child with appropriate follow-through that will not compromise your child further. And so I just want to, well, let me say this first. If you do not take on a listening posture, you will never find out the entire story. Your child will feel shut down or fearful to tell you what's really happening. So if your child says something like that, you don't want to say, why don't you like, what happened, or what did you do? Did you make him angry? You want to, I would call that over emoting. We don't want to show a lot of emotion. You might want to say something really soft, like, was he unkind to you? And just by showing them that you care about something as maybe as benign as unkindness will then allow them to feel safe to share with you more. Okay, so responding to your child by over emoting or overreacting is a common It's common, and it happens when parents feel a loss of control. Every parent experiences a time when they feel out of control or there's a moment of chaos in the home and they raise their voice and lose their cool. If you find that happens regularly and frequently, it might be time to pull in as a parent and assess how your parenting is working. Is it working? Angry, panicky reactions are desperate ways to gain control. And if they happen regularly and frequently, those reactions by a parent or a caregiver can harm a child in a few ways. Let me talk about that. It can affect them mentally in how they experience the world and develop their world view. It can harm them emotionally. For example, they may become fearful or have a higher propensity towards anxiety. And physically, if your anger gets out of control or if you shut them down with minimization, you could harm them physically because as wild as it sounds, constant over-emoting or shutting a child down can cause a child's emotional distress that leads to actually physiological symptoms caused by stress. The best thing to do if you identify with this is to stop. Have grace for yourself as you assess why you are expressing your points with anger or too much emotion or not listening. Take time to cool off and then re-engage in a positive way, which I will share with you in a little bit. Parenting is complex. I mean, we all know this. That topic alone could be a whole course. I simply want to say that every parent brings their own traits and characteristics to a relationship that impact the way they parent, their personality, their beliefs, their knowledge about child development or their lack of knowledge about child development, their age, their mental and physical health, and so on, including the way in which they were parented. So let's look at two different types of parenting. Sorry. There's punitive parenting and positive parenting, to simplify. So we'll start with punitive parenting, as a large number of children experience that. In fact, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, by the time children have reached 5th grade, nearly 80% of them have been punished physically. Punitive parenting may be done intentionally or unintentionally. It may work in the moment, but it may cause long-term negative emotional consequences for the child. For many parents, punitive parenting may come out in words that fly out in the moment of feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or angry. Words can cause significant damage. If not just as much, they may cause more lasting damage to a child than physical discipline. The language we use, negative words and lashing out can actually interrupt a child's brain functioning. It can be a traumatic experience for the child, which overactivates certain elements of the brain and then underactivates other elements of the brain. And so it's really important to understand that brain functioning is tied to how you parent. Harsh words and tones can cause children to become angry themselves and even violent because they feel mischaracterized and unheard. For example, in frustration, saying, "Ugh, you never do anything right," or "You're a slob," or sometimes parents will tell their children they are fat or stupid, for example. No matter who we are, words have the power to destroy both the child's inner world and outer world. As parents, we need to choose our words wisely. Excuse me 1 second. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I have construction workers here. Let's see, where was I? So as parents, we need to choose our words wisely. Kind and encouraging, affirming words can make your child feel seen, make them feel valued, worthwhile, and secure. There's a saying that words create worlds. And many times we see that to be true. The language we use can help support a child develop a strong sense of self or it can cause them to doubt their own ability to properly assess a situation. In other words, children need healthy adults to connect with the child's core perspectives. They won't trust themselves to accurately discern situations if adults aren't proactively validating the child's perspectives and feelings. If you do the opposite, they doubt themselves. So now that we've looked at some of the ways we good parents have caused harm in our child's life, let's look at how we can make it right with them. What can you do if you've employed a punitive parenting style, not knowing its impact, or even if you have a memory or two of a way that you reacted or responded to your child that leaves you feeling, yuck, I didn't do that well? The answer is to own where you were wrong with your child. It's okay to do this. It's great modeling. Tell them, for example, remember when mommy got so mad and said XYZ? I am so sorry. I lost my temper and you didn't deserve that. I'm so sorry I hurt you. I love you. You are so important to me. Those kinds of affirmations that really create an attachment to the child, a connection to the child. State all the truths you see in your child. Make amends. Then where you have taken and made a withdrawal out of their love tank, replace it with deposits. So a negativity would be a withdrawal and positive affirmation would be deposits. I cannot overstate the importance of an apology. When a parent or adult has the ability to recognize where they said or did something wrong, and they are humble enough to own their mistakes and apologize, it's very healing for a child. So long as the apology is delivered in a calm and respectful way, and reparation goes full circle to not repeatedly harm the child in the same way, it can have such a ministering effect on your child's heart and mind. I mean, we all make mistakes as parents. The best way we can preserve relationships with our children and help them build autonomy and confidence, and we want them to build autonomy and we want them to be confident. We don't want them to be inflated, but we want them to feel secure in their own identity and to trust their own emotions, which requires our positive feedback. So we need to own and apologize for the ways that we say or do something that hurt and harmed our child. If it cannot be done in the moment, it's okay and even wise to revisit a conversation once you and your child are both calm and ready to have healthy dialogue. And the final reward of apologizing as a parent is that you're teaching your child that everyone makes mistakes, even mom and dad, and you are modeling for them what to do when they make mistakes, that it's not humiliating to apologize, but it's actually life-giving exchange to have. Along that same line, as being able to humble yourself and apologize when speaking to your child, it helps to posture yourself in a way that feels connective and safe. How do you do that? Well, it's in your body language and in your facial expressions. You might want to bend down so you speak to your child on their level. When we get down to their level, we can look in their eyes when we speak to your child. And that positioning and eye contact helps them to feel secure and make space for there to be a meaningful connection. It tells your child, you have my full attention. For older children, this could look like sitting together at the table or on the sofa, providing your full undivided attention while giving eye contact and posturing to meet them at their level, to understand their feelings, will tell your child that they are very important to you. And it will help you to gain better understanding to experience the world from their point of view. It's also important when you are offering an apology to not justify your prior actions and to not get defensive if the child tells you how it made them feel. An apology is the time to validate their feelings, validating their feelings with the mindset that you are helping them gain clarity and a secure attachment to you, while you are also offering them correct, language around the prior event. And offering correct language increases emotional IQ. Both punitive and positive parenting styles impact the child's development, how the child sees and experiences themselves, and whether or not an adolescent will have a healthy attachment to you or a disorganized one. I should say, not just adolescents, for all children. The way we relate with them will determine whether you have a healthy attachment, which affects them. That's a whole other topic, but attachment affects them for the rest of their lives. Or if you have a disorganized attachment, one that leads to bigger relational problems in the future, relational problems with others, relational problems with a future spouse, the type of spouse they choose, and so forth. It really relies on having early childhood healthy attachment. So now let's look at how parents can take a positive approach. Parents who take a positive approach focus on their child's strengths. They use solutions to teach right from wrong. They teach values. And when there is unwanted behavior, a parent who practices positive parenting uses constructive, warm, nurturing responses that reinforce the desired behavior. Positive parenting is associated with children who have higher grades, fewer behavioral problems, less substance abuse, better mental health, and greater social competence. In addition to those benefits, they have a healthy self-esteem and have stronger family bonds. And self-esteem, some people might find that word problematic, but what I'm really saying is that they have confidence in their ability to judge situations accurately, and to express their voice, to not feel shut down or unempowered, but to feel empowered to effectively communicate their needs, their wants, and their complaints. I want to share a solution that can either help you start the journey towards parenting from a place that is positive, or will strengthen, add to, and support you if you are already doing so. How do we as adults set the expectation for what a healthy relationship looks like? Number one, children need physical attention that feels good. Giving your child nurturing physical affection, such as a hug, cuddling on the sofa, rubbing their back, or even holding their hand, creates feelings of security, protection, and love. And number two, provide clear instruction. I'm so sorry. It can be very challenging to stay calm and clear when your child is misbehaving. But if you can practice doing so and calmly and clearly tell them what you want them to do, they will eventually know that you are they will know what you are looking for and want to meet your expectations. At the Men Project, one of our threads throughout everything we teach is that clarity is healing. So we want to use the proper language, being very clear about what we're conveying and not emotionally reacting, which doesn't convey what you really want to. Being clear is being kind. And number three, regarding their desire to meet your expectations, keep your expectations realistic. No child can be perfect. No parent is perfect. Children's brains are developing, and you play a very significant role in that successful development. There will be challenges, so you should expect them as a parent. Your child will have challenges also, and you should expect them. This will decrease your frustration and disappointment towards your child and help you to stay grounded in your humanity while remaining gracious towards imperfection for both of you. Number four, set boundaries. As parents, it's our job to set boundaries or limits. Our children depend on us to do so. And boundaries bring security and safety to a child. A great way to explain boundaries to your child is using the example of a school playground. A school playground is enclosed by fences, gates, walls, and so forth. And those Fences, gates, or walls keep the child inside in the safe boundaries of the school. They also keep potentially dangerous people out. Boundaries are the guardrails in a relationship. Boundaries keep us safe. You can also use the example of a home if the home is a safe place for the child. So if they're in a home, it's not safe, then I wouldn't use that example. But the walls and doors keep the child safe inside from cold and hot weather, from rodents and other animals, from strangers. The key is to set limits or boundaries on a child's behavior in a way that it's clear, such as stop and look both ways before crossing the street, or wash your hands clean before you eat. These are clear boundaries that can be set. And when setting boundaries, keep family rules to a minimum. There doesn't need to be lots of rules. Just clearly set rules and limits, letting the child know why the boundary is important and what the consequence will be if they do not honor those limits. Number 5, children respond well to praise and rewards. You cannot give too much praise to your child. Children need their parents to call out their great strengths and all they see in them in order for them to reach their full potential. Every child has different gifting, and we want to acknowledge those, those gifts. We want to affirm them. We all know the world can be cruel to our kids. Don't count on your children hearing praises and receiving rewards outside the home. Lavish your love and praise and rewards on them as their parents. And number 6 is model behavior. This is often easier said than done. Let's be honest, parenting requires so much out of us, and it's constant around the clock. It's easy to let ourselves become overwhelmed, lose our cool, and respond in ways that we would never want our children to. Try to keep your cool in front of your children. If that means you take 5 minutes to disconnect and then come back to reconnect in a positive way, great. Your child can trigger you, and you can then in turn trigger your child. If you feel yourself reacting rather than responding with care, you can easily say, honey, I'm feeling dysregulated right now. Your behavior is causing me to want to react rather than respond the way I'd like to. I'm going to take 20 minutes and come back to this conversation when I'm calm. Children will copy what you do. Your poor behavior choices will become their poor behavior choices. Your positive choices will become their positive choices. You can pause before responding. Think about what you want your child to see and learn, and then act. You will feel good, and your child will learn the behavior you desire for them that you're displaying. Respond in ways you would like for people to respond to you on your hard days or in your hard moments. And finally, take good care of yourself. We cannot give water from an empty well. It's okay and healthy to take time for yourself, to do something you enjoy, or even just to rest or restore for 5 to 10 minutes of quiet time. It can be very calming to find a quiet place where you can focus on your breathing. Even for 5 minutes, it calms the nervous system. Or perhaps you enjoy going out for a walk or a bike ride. You may even get up before your children or stay up after they go to sleep to take time doing what nourishes your soul. Eating well and getting good rest is really important for self-care. Our children need us to care well for ourselves so that we can do the same for them. If you're overextended and you're all stressed out, it's going to be that much more difficult to parent proactively. It's going to be more likely that you're going to parent reactively. These are just some of the tools we can use to bring you back to a good baseline where you can parent from a place of positivity rather than punitive or punishment. We all need kind and compassionate care. And compassionate and kind parenting will create an environment for the whole family that will be happier and healthier. Whether you're a parent who has younger or older children, whether you're in a season of smaller problems or bigger problems, we have a resource at the Men Project that will empower you to be a safe parent for your children to come to. And that is what we call our healing model of compassion. It looks like this. And you can practice the healing model of compassion, which you will find on our website. Jill, do we know where this is on our website?
Yes, and I can see if I can get that link quickly.
Okay, I'll report that back to you. But the healing model of compassion is basically how to interact with anyone, not just your child. And just to briefly touch on it, and we explain it in more detail on our website, but we want to listen. We want to accept their perspective to be true. We don't want to minimize them. So we want to accept. We want to empathize with them. We want to validate them. We want to identify with them. We might tell a short little story about how something in our childhood was similar and how it made you feel, so you can really understand how it makes them feel. You want to encourage them. It's like saying, I believe in you. You're a great person and you're going to get through this. I hear you. And you want to ask them not a lot of interrogating questions, but you want to say, how can I help you? What can I do for you? What would you really like to see me do? And then if they're really sad because they've lost something, they've lost a friendship, or they know they're going to lose a friendship because they have to make a difficult decision, allow them to grieve and grieve with them. Life is hard, and we want to not minimize that grief. We want to really connect with them and process that with them. In closing today, if you are not already on our mailing list, to receive updates about training, our newsletter, and blogs, please go to our website and sign up today. We post things often, and you can reach out to us at info@themendproject.com. We answer our emails in a timely fashion, and we really look forward to hearing from you. If you are experiencing abuse in the home and you have children, we understand these relationships are very difficult. Our website is full of resources to simplify the complicated nature of abuse, particularly psychological abuse. I also want to encourage you to find resources that will provide you with the support and care that you and your children need and deserve. Resources like domestic violence agencies, where they offer wonderful classes and offer support, and join our trainings where you will glean a wealth of information. So now, as we close, we'd like to take time for any questions you may have. Please feel free to drop them in the chat box at this time.
Okay, Annette, we do have a question here. Actually, we have a couple. The first one says, hi, thanks so much for this info. I signed up to grow in my own parenting. Unfortunately, my wife is not on board and tends to be very punitive, angry, yelling, etc. with no apologies. Oh, a few more questions coming in. With no apologies or discussion afterwards. My main struggle is getting clarity on what is right or good, setting boundaries, and not being reactive. What to do when parents are not on the same page?
Boy, that's really tough. I don't like to undermine another parent, but I think in this case, it's really abusive if a parent is behaving that way, and it has long-lasting effects on your child. And I think your obligation to the minor child is greater than your obligation to your spouse. And so even if you have to develop the kind of relationship with them that speaks to them and says, mommy didn't react well, and I'm so sorry that you had to experience that. Let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about what made her upset and what we can do about it. And if it was just really unfair, you can be the person that really speaks positive energy and affirmations into them. As long as they have two role models offering different, modeling different ways, they will take the good parts from each parent and they will recognize that they put limits on the bad parts. They will have at least another voice modeling for them that they're valuable, that they're important, and that they're good. And so that's what I would do. I mean, I personally would not tolerate a parent behaving that way. I would set limits and boundaries on that other parent. I would demand of them that you will remove the children. I know these sound drastic, but I would possibly consider a separation, taking the kids with you, and that sort of thing. Some kind of significant boundary. And if you're not able to do that, and you don't have the cooperation, I might even start speaking after trying to other methods. And if they all fail, I would maybe even speak in the moment. Excuse me, you're overreacting. No, you are not going to be punished. That's not fair. I would just defy the person and say, you're not being fair, and protect the kids from that experience, intervene. Those are my suggestions.
Question is, if the child is in crisis and says she doesn't want to live anymore, how can we accept what she is feeling while discouraging the negative thought?
Oh, it's so hard. Child suicide is a real issue, and it's increasing. I would, if your child really has those suicidal thoughts, I would really try to connect with what your child is feeling and see if you can intervene in a way. Like if they're being bullied at school, we don't want to tell the victim of bullying, oh, just go play on the other side of the playground. You want to get involved, go to the school, ask, many schools have cameras, ask for them to look at the tape and see what has been happening. Intervene, try to really advocate for your child. And I would also enlist the help of a specialist therapist who can really address the severity of these suicidal thoughts. We don't want to just minimize them and overlook them because we don't know how serious they are. But I would just really promote emotional connection and not telling your child what to feel or think, but really hearing what they're feeling and thinking and what's really bothering them so that you can get them the proper help.
Yeah, that was so tough.
I'm sorry you're going through that. That's really hard.
Yeah. There is another question here. Can you share your perspective if your adult child has narcissistic behaviors like her dad, my ex?
Boy, that's really tough. I think, we have on our website terms and definitions of what qualifies as abusive behaviors or narcissistic behaviors. I don't know the age of your child, if they're in, let's say, 5th or 6th, maybe 6th grade or higher, they would have the capacity to understand those terms and definitions. I would start educating them about what actually is abusive behavior, give them the language to understand that. And again, I would seek the help of a professional therapist. While when children are 18, you can't make them go to therapy. So I really encourage that you use the time that they're a minor to get them the help that they really need.
Really good and really good point. And that is it, I think, for questions.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Until next month, when we have our next intensive, hopefully we'll see you there as well. And thank you for joining us today. Take good care.